Welcome to Community Cuts. Every Friday, we're here at Salon Lincoln, located at 732 Washington Avenue between Prospect Place and Park Place. I'm always talking and advocating to support Black businesses and family. Come on out and support Salon Lee. We have an interesting topic today. We're going to be talking about our communities are beginning beginning to awaken. And so I got two guests here today, and I'm going to turn it over to Ricky. Ricky, why don't you open up, please?
Hello, community. This is Mr. Ricky James. I am a preservationist by trade. I'm an associate architect. I've lived the field of naval architecture. I'm interested in what we are doing here in Brooklyn. The issue does come up once in a while about things as far as housing is concerned. I feel it is something that we should always talk about. Conversation is the key to progress. So do converse.
Hey, Joe, please chime on in and tell us what you do. I know you're an activist here in Brooklyn, and we've been knowing each other for a few years now. And my brother, I know that you tell us about Brooklyn. Tell us what you're doing.
Hello, everyone. My name is Joe Gonzalez, and I live in Brooklyn, New York. This is my home. I'm not going anywhere. I've been here for eons. And like a lot of other people, I'm deeply concerned with what's happening in Brooklyn. I'm possessed to the belief that many of our elected officials are completely out of touch with what's going on in the community. Our elected officials are making plans that are going to affect Brooklyn for decades deep in the future. So if that's not bad enough, they make these plans without engaging the community. We barely have heard the wraps on some of the future plans. And that thing is moving ahead in Brooklyn full speed. I'm talking about the introduction of casino gambling in Brooklyn. Now, as many of our listeners know, we are just barely getting over the Barclays Center deal, which now 21 years later has ravished Brooklyn. Untold numbers of people have been forced to move out. Rents have been doubled, tripled, quadrupled. We'll never know how many people have moved out of Brooklyn. The Barclays Center came and ignited a fire that has spread across North Brooklyn through the neighborhoods of Fort Greene, Clinton Hill, Bed-Stuy, Crown Heights, Brownsville, East New York. That fire is now going down so-called East Brooklyn into the neighborhoods of Canarsie, Mill Basin, Sheepshead Bay, where people can no longer afford to live here. The rents are very, very high. What we're now seeing are plans to turn sections of Coney Island into casinos. Very clearly, and it's already happening, neighborhoods are under siege. People's homes, they're late with the rent, they're struggling financially. They could see a bank call in their mortgage and they could possibly be evicted from their home. Coney Island is a neighborhood largely of one family, two family homes. There are very few high-rise buildings in Coney Island. The introduction of casinos there would completely ravish that neighborhood.
We were talking about Long Island cities, Joe.
Yes.
About the casino that is already out by the airport, JFK, and also in the area of Lefferts Boulevard, in Rockaway, the far Rockaway. I don't know if that works. They say it works. The casino there works. And the neighborhood says it works. But what does it do?
Well, let me answer that. Whenever there's a new development in the neighborhood, the Barclays Center deal, the proposed casinos, a new stadium, you name it, that deal necessarily impacts the community in ways that many people are not familiar. So, for example, if a 15-story building goes up in the area, it immediately impacts the sewer system. If you have a building, or you have a block, I should say, where you have a row of 2-story buildings, 3-story buildings, the sewer width might be 10-inch water main that goes underground. That's why, because the reason for that is when the buildings are put up, they've performed a mathematical analysis of how much water a building needed. So it's X number of gallons times the height of the building. A building, of course, needs water for the toilet, the sink, the shower, you name it. If you have a 15-story building, 20-story building or more, the water main that was 10 inches might have to go to 36 inches or more, because a whole lot more water is going through the pipes for that high-rise building. More than that, and this is significant and it's missed by a lot of people, because the people who are bringing the high-rise buildings in don't want people to realize that their goal is to get in and get out. Get in very quickly, sing the praises of what a high-rise building will do, and then what? They're gone. New building goes up, whether it's the Barclays Center or any other building. What happens there is sanitation workers are strained. Why? Because a 2-story building doesn't produce the amount of garbage that a 20-story building produces. So in all these areas, for example, downtown Brooklyn, we're now getting reports that maybe the garbage wasn't picked up because there's not enough time for sanitation workers to pick up all the garbage before they have to move on, and they have time limits that they have to make their rounds. The post office is impacted. 20-story building necessarily means more mail has to be delivered. Firefighters need more equipment to fight a fire or medical emergency in a 20-story building than if it was a 2-story building. Most fire trucks have a ladder which enables them to go up to the 4th floor. So the truck pulls up outside, the fire ladder goes right up, and they can approach the building from the outside by the ladder. If you have a 15 to 20-story building, the ladder cannot reach the 20th story, so the firefighters have to go in the building, and they're not allowed to ride the elevator whenever there's a fire. So those firefighters have to climb up 20 stories with an oxygen tank on their back and other fire equipment, which means they take longer to get there. More than that, the local schools are impacted. Why? More people means what? More students. I could go on for another 2 hours about how city, state, and federal government services are severely strained. But we don't get those conversations because many of our electeds are receiving donations from real estate interests. So they keep their mouth shut.
Yep.
They only limit the conversation to when is this building going up, and that's it. More traffic, more garbage, mail delivery service, which is a federal issue. We don't hear our members of Congress addressing why post office services in Brooklyn are not what they should be. So the public is cheated by a lack of conversation even before these new buildings going up.
If you have been down to this area he is speaking about, down by the stadium, you can see how many new buildings have been brought up. And they're talking about covering the Atlantic Yards Railroad Station and putting up more buildings in that respect. Where is all this sewer work and the sewer water going to go? Where is the pipes to take them to where it's going to come from? Maybe they had this in plan already because they have the computers that can tally up the mathematics for that kind of type of project. But this has been going on since the 80s, this building and this construction within that area.
So this is a critical issue. And in the democracy that we live in, citizens are supposed to be consulted whenever something is going on, and their opinions are supposed to matter. You have to look at this thing. There's all kinds of deceptive plans that are sprinkled on the citizens to keep them confused about what the issues are. There's a lot of mischievous financial scams that are going on to hurry up and get approval for these buildings. And the people who sold them to us, they're gone. They're gone. What we have right now in downtown Brooklyn, massive overcrowding. Now, we're hearing from people everywhere, well, New York City has an overcrowding problem. I get it. So what is that going to lead us to? The day when every building in New York City is a 40-story building?
Right.
See, I take the position that there is a limit on how many people can get into New York City.
Yeah.
I don't know what that number is, but we have a choice. If we're gonna be the doormat to the country, if you will, then every building in New York City will rise to 40 stories. There isn't a single elected official. I've been involved in community activism over 30 years. I am hard pressed to remember one time that any city, state, or federal elected official currently in office or previously in office engaged the community in discussion about wraparound services. We certainly didn't hear it with the Barclays Center. We have a dynamic now in Brooklyn, which I consider to be horrible. Most people, I know I did, I know many of the people tuning into this show as well did. What did you do? You went to school in your neighborhood. You walked to school. For the local grade school, for the middle school, and frequently the local high school. You walk to the high school, maybe a short bus ride. With so much overcrowding in Brooklyn and the other 4 boroughs as well, we now have a dynamic where people in Fort Greene, Clinton Hill are getting on buses and subways and going to high schools in Bay Ridge, in Coney Island, or other boroughs. They are severe. That's a byproduct of overcrowding of schools. We have been cheated at every level with all of this development. And quite frankly, I don't see any change in it because I don't know of a single city, state, or federal elected official who is today prepared to engage the community on what all of these proposed new buildings are going to do in terms of impacting services.
Well,
So we're in trouble.
I've seen, but inside each community there is a community board. Each community board has the right and the facilities and the office and the nature to hold ULUPs in order to give the community a conversation with inside any project that is being put up. These ULUPs are helpful in a way, but they're never really listened to. But again, the issue is they do have a community board that does listen in your community. So do look them up.
So to help the listeners who might not be familiar with ULURP, that is the acronym that stands for Uniform Land Review Process and Approval. So it's a process that has multiple steps to it, that when a developer wants to come in a neighborhood and take a 3-story building and go up to a 20-story building, or take a 1-story building and make a square block facility of one sort or another, or an arena such as the Barclays Center, that developer must come to the local community board and explain what the project is and engage the representatives on the community board. So on paper, it sounds good, but in practice, the community board is not structured to be effective. So in each city council district, the local council member gets to pick half of the appointees, and each community board has about 40 people. Half of them are selected by the borough president, half are selected by the local city council person. Once a month, they meet en masse at a location which is advertised, it's known. They're not paid a salary. They're regular, everyday people. They may be retirees. They may be students. They may be civil servants. They may be people employed in the private sector. The design to fail is integrated into how the community board is structured. They get zero professional help in reviewing the documents and the issues attendant to the development. And I used to regularly attend the community board meetings at Community Board 3. I stopped going when I was so revolted. Here's the way it works. They wrap the hammer, on the table at 7 o'clock. They announce Community Board 3 is now in session. They then take 15 minutes or so to take attendance. They then announce that the community board in session and so is a developer and he's proposing to open up a liquor store, a wine store, or build a new high-rise building in the neighborhood. He comes before the board, he'll talk for 10 minutes, 15 minutes, sing the praises of his plan. At that point, that is largely, with some exception, but it is largely the first time that the community board even knows anything about the plan. They get no documents. At most, it may be a 2 or 3 page document that is filed in the office of the community board, but the members of the community board don't have detailed information. There's not an environmental review, such as what a 40-story building or a 20-story building does in the way of creating more garbage and more pollution. They don't have that stuff. Community board members tend to be nice people who mean well, but it's not designed to give them as much information as possible. Switch that to the city council, the state legislature, or the Congress. Before any proposal comes before those 3 bodies, an extensive document is filed with their staff. They have an opportunity to review it over weeks, over months. They bring people in, place them under oath, and interrogate them very intensely. So a city council hearing, state legislature, or even the Congress, those hearings are much more purposeful, and they're designed to be successful at getting information. The community board is not designed. The applicant, the developer, he's not put under oath. He isn't questioned in detail of what his plan is, and he certainly doesn't file a whole lot of documents. So on one hand, it appears to be a purposeful facility and a purposeful technique for finding out what the community wants, but in the span of maybe an hour and a half meeting, it's not enough time to get information, and the 40 people on the board do not have enough time to ask the hard questions. Once it gets past them, the local council person, who most likely is taking campaign contributions, that which can be checked. I advise everyone to go check and see what campaign contributions your council person is getting. Once done, they then move very quickly to do what the real estate developers told them to do. And before you know it, the developer is given a pass, and up goes a 20, 30, or 40-story building, and your neighborhood is transformed forever.
Well, transparency had been introduced by de Blasio and Cuomo during their administration. You have the right to attend any of these meetings, the planning board, the city council, any meeting, and you have the right to voice your opinion at these meetings. They do say, is there a word from the public here at this meeting? And they do say your piece, and you do have the time to say what it is you feel about this building that's coming up.
And you're correct at that regard, that you do have an opportunity. But the problem is the opportunity is largely irrelevant, because if you don't have the information about what the plan is and who's putting it up and where the funding has come from and how long it's going to take and what streets in your neighborhood are going to be shut down during the 2 or 3 year period it takes to build a building, then you really can't have an intelligent conversation about what's happening in your community when you don't have details. Remember, developers don't want you to have details. And if it's a 2-hour meeting, that's just not enough time for you to get all this information and give out your opinion.
In my community board 2, all of the individuals sitting on the board seems to be, or always seems to have, documentation about everything that is presented. I go on the computer when I do feel like I should attend something, or something in my community, or my block, or in my area. I print out all that is necessary that is going to be talked about on that day. I don't know if that you're correct, but it is available. Some of the things that you need to know.
Well, I would agree with you to some extent that some people have access to the information,
yes,
but the council person and the community board are not in consultation. So the vote takes place as soon as the developer is finished.
Right.
He gives a speech, he'll ask a couple of people, anybody has a quick little question or a suggestion, someone will stand up, make a statement, maybe 3 or 4 other people might stand up and make a statement. Each person's given 3 minutes, which is absurd. And then there's a vote. The community council voted for this developer to do that. They have no objection, and it goes flying through. Again, it's not designed for a lengthy review, because those people who are pushing these new bills don't want the citizens in mass to learn about these new buildings, and maybe someone will wake up and say, how come the post office in that area, such as downtown Brooklyn, has not gotten increased number of postal workers? Okay, in Fort Greene, Clinton Hill, Bed-Stuy, people are getting Christmas cards and Christmas presents in January, some in early February, which is all the proof you need. There are massive problems with post office. Has the local member of Congress opened his mouth to ask why are people getting Christmas cards and packages in January? There's been a failure of leadership on every level. Has a local city council person who has jurisdiction over the school system, are they asking why kids in Fort Greene are being put on buses and trains and sent to high schools in Coney Island? So those are a byproduct of all the new buildings going up. And as more and more people pour into the neighborhood reaches a saturation point. So I begrudge anyone who doesn't have a place to live, but I'm also in touch with reality. And the reality is every neighborhood has a saturation point short of making every building in New York City a 40-story building.
I'm going to touch on what you said about the postal system and the City Preservation Commission, New York City Preservation Commission, takes care of these archaic ideas in buildings. You work in a building, you take your time. It happens a lot. They have had people. I stood in the commission's hearing for a building, and he presented his building, but there was so many. I was the only person in the audience. There was nobody there saying a peep or a boo. But the commission stood up to these people and told them, go back to your drawing board and do it over.
Well, that is the rare exception with respect to the architectural board. What's the full name of it?
The New York Preservation Commission.
The Landmark Preservation Commission.
Yes,
you're right, the LPC. So in that case, they are very rigorous in guarding attempts to tear down historical buildings. I get that. But back to the point at hand, postal services in downtown Brooklyn, which has had about 40 new high-rise buildings going up in recent years. Downtown Brooklyn, Fort Greene, Clinton Hill, Bed-Stuy, postal service is an abomination, and there isn't any city person or city agency who's going to confront the post office. That is the exclusive jurisdiction of the members of Congress. So everyone tuning in this show, get in touch with your local Congress member and make some noise. If they don't return your calls and they don't abide your concern, set up a picket line outside their offices, go knock on their doors, let them know you want the post office reviewed. This has been a problem for at least 15 years. Members of Congress in Brooklyn should have already addressed the problem. Vote with your feet, people, okay? Show up outside their door. They need to feel the heat. Postal facilities are grievously under-resourced and understaffed in downtown Brooklyn. Go to your member of Congress. Do it tomorrow. Let them feel your pain. Let them know you want to stop getting Christmas cards in January and packages in February. Next question there, moderator Duke.
Well, I want to find out from both of you, is there awakening happening in our community where the young people are starting to really be awake in their community, in their service to their country?
I think there is. We live in a dynamic now where people get information from their cell phone, social media. In a bygone era, you had 3 newspapers in New York City where you got your information from: Daily News, New York Post, New York Times. On TV, it was Channel 2, Channel 4, Channel 5, 7, and 11. Today, there are hundreds of channels where people get their news. Someone can write out a text message and send it to 100 people. So people get their information from text messaging and a host of other ways. People can get information now faster. Of course, we do know that some of the information is wrong, partially or 100% wrong. But because young people in particular can get information a lot faster in real time, where they're showing a video of someone being beaten by a policeman, you no longer have to wait and hope that the Daily News published it in their newspaper tomorrow, or Channel 7 put it online or put it on their station tomorrow. Now, as soon as you videotape it, you can immediately upload it to the world. So we have to look at how information gets processed out. Because young people, almost all of them are getting the information from their cell phone, it enables them to get information faster. But we've witnessed, by virtue of a lot of high-profile videos, whether it's George Floyd, whose 5th anniversary is this weekend, or any number of other horrible, horrible incidents, whether it's a car crash, whether it's someone slapping their wife, whether it's a ball game or an entertainment incident, people can immediately blast that out. And then as a result, because of technology changes, people can engage people a lot faster. In a bygone era, you had to make one phone call at a time to people you knew. You had to write one letter at a time. That's how you got your information out. Either pick up the phone or you wrote a letter. Today, with your cell phone, you can literally inform millions of people at one time via various social media networks of something you want to get out. So it has made it easier. Let's be clear. Young people can get stuff out a lot. All people can, but in particular, because they grew up on social media, they can get information out. So something that's good can also be at the same time something bad. Obviously, we've seen some instances where information goes out and it's just plain wrong.
Right.
But that is the dynamic with the change in technology. I think young people have seen when information goes out very fast and it goes out far and wide, they see immediate changes. For example, 30 years ago, if someone was beaten by the police, citizens would write a complaint. It would go out. Maybe the prosecutor and the legal authorities would do something. But whatever they did, it was based on the affidavit and the written statements that citizens gave. Today, with video cameras, it forces government, whether it's legal officials or otherwise, it forces their hand because everyone saw what just happened. If a citizen sees a hole in the sidewalk, what are they doing? We're seeing citizens take a picture of the hole, send it to government, send it to lawyers, send it to community people. Look, there's a hole in the sidewalk. Look, there's a hole in the street. So with technology, you can get your story out a lot faster, which now encourages people to be more active because they can get their message out. And no longer do you have to depend on the newspaper to tell your story.
Exactly. That's
You
correct.
can tell your own story with podcasts, with text messages, with various social media sites, you name it. And that's what we're seeing. The ability to get your information out has transformed the public square.
If you have been inside of a university where kids get most of their information and most of all the news from and what to do when in public, it's impossible to leave once you learn all that they have, all the weapons that they have. They call them weapons, but they're not lethal weapons. They're just weapons of information, like the pen used to be, or the phone used to be. They have the computer lab. They have the media center where they can film a film and create their own thing. They have a Cartoon Network where they can make their own characters and their own issues. These things are important. You don't see Bugs Bunny or Superman on TV any longer because they have it on their media and they look at it instantly. And it's not really for us. It's for the children or the kids that they created it. So I see they're in a better seat than we have, and it's not going to go backwards. It's going to go forward.
Yeah, there's a quick awakening throughout the entire world.
Yeah.
I'm seeing Africa turn around as well, and they kicked out the French out of their country.
Yeah.
Senegal just did it the other day.
You know, to that end, let me say this. There are people listening to this show, and you're sitting there saying, I don't like what's going on in my community. What can I do? I'm sure almost everyone here under the sound of my voice is saying that. So let me address your concern. Keep doing what you're doing. Tune in regularly to this outstanding show, Community Cuts. If you like what someone's doing, reach out to them, support them. There's strength in numbers. So rather than say 10 people in one building all doing their own TV show or writing letters in different directions, by combining your resources, talking to your neighbors, because I believe everybody really in Brooklyn and New York City and in the country and around the world. Everybody wants the same thing. No one under the sound of my voice wants to come home tonight and find out somebody broke in your home and stole what you were. So we all share the desire to have a safe home. None of us want to get a phone call that someone we love and care about has been hit by a car or been a victim of a crime or had some medical crisis. So we share that. The things that matter. None of us under the sound of my voice want to get a phone call that the school your children go to is the scene of an active shooter. So we share that concern. The things that matter, we're all on the same page. Since we are, combine your resources. There are institutions in the community. Some of them are houses of worship. Some of them are fraternal groups. Some of them are local business persons. Understand, people want the same thing you want. When you combine your resources, you talk, you find out what people want, then you organize. Let's say you had 15 people in one neighborhood, Prospect Heights, for example. Each block, you find out, where do you live? Where do you live? What block you on? Block you on? If you have 15 people in a room, there at least a possibility that those 15 people live on 14 or 15 different streets. Now that body of 15 people now can cover a 15 block radius. You're the block captain for Washington Avenue. You're the block captain for Flatbush Avenue. You're the block captain for Atlantic. Each one of you would talk to the group and say, well, here's what's going on Park Place. Another one might say, look, this is what's going on Eastern Parkway. So you, from where you sit, you have an opportunity to be the block captain and share the information. Because if I'm on Atlantic, I might not necessarily know what's going on Eastern Parkway. So you have your meeting, start small, in a local church, in a park, in a library, online, through media entities such as Community Cuts. Share your concern, and you realize, as I said earlier, the things that matter most or what you all have in common.
That is correct. And that reminds me that we're galvanizing our energy. We're putting our energy, we're not scattering the energy. And I think that once our community understands to put their energy together, they become a force to be reckoned with.
Yeah, absolutely.
I belong to an organization called Sons of the American Revolution, American Legion. I'm a son of a war veteran. My uncle was a Purple Heart, and he was a World War II veteran. I'm proud to serve in his honor. I'm one of the kids that was under him. This kind of attitude is seen throughout this country for kids of today. That's all I'm going to say.
You know, if we look back in the 1700s, George Washington's day, Denmark Vesey's day, amazing how they stood up to oppression from the British government. They didn't have cell phones. They didn't have laptops.
Yep.
They didn't have television, didn't have radio, but they talked to each other. 1800s, during the slave era, all the way up to the railroads crisscrossing the country, and the invention of electricity and various other devices that we take for granted today, which were invented in the bygone era, in the 1900s. We're now in 2025. But in significant portions of American history, they didn't have the technology. In the 1930s, Marcus Garvey had what was called a mimeograph machine, where you type something on the paper, you wrapped it around a roll, and you turn the thing around, and it printed stuff out. What did he do? As I earlier said, every block in his neighborhood, he had someone on that block. He would get the flyer to them. They, in turn, would copy it and go up and down the people on their block, handing it to them, getting the word out. A lot of people didn't have telephones. TVs didn't exist until the late 1950s. What happened? When that happened, it enabled mass communication on a whole different scale. But understand, for over 200 years, our ancestors got word out and were very productive and accomplished so much without a cell phone.
Yeah.
People today say, I can't get along without my cell phone. Nuts. people got along quite well with going block to block by organizing their community. And it's something for people to really look at how many things were done without the invention of modern technology. That's not to take away the value of cell phones and laptop computers, but understand that we got along quite well without them.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you both, leaders of this community, Brooklyn, and we're coming to a close.
Before we close, do we have the contact information? I know there are people right now saying, I want to send you an email. I want to send you a message. Do we have the contact information for the show? Is there some way they can reach? Because there's so many people watching the show, and I'm sure they're calling their friends, telling them tune in. How do people reach you?
Gmail at 39 at dot email dot.
Start from the top. I think you
I think-
go slow and start from the top.
I think it's
You're getting this, get your paper and pencil. In a moment, he's going to get the contact information for you. And what is it again? Go slowly, please.
it's community cuts at gmail39.com.
Again, communitycuts@gmail.com.
.com. Correct.
Correct. One last time, communitycuts@gmail.com. And we'll be excited to get those emails from you and continue this next Friday evening. Thank you all for tuning in.
And thank you both. Thank you, the leaders of some of the leaders, which is you, both of you, from Brooklyn, New York. I thank you both. And I also want to say to our community I'm also asking our community to, shop Black, allow your money to recycle in our communities, right? Because when you do that, you give our communities, which is Crown Heights, all of Brooklyn, all of New York, when you do cycle your money, you give our community power that we can rest on. And so I know there's big box stores, but please try to shop in your community, your own community, and shop with your people that's going to support you as well.
Yes, and speaking of Buy Black, the annual BAM Africa Festival starts tomorrow, Saturday, May 24th. It's all day, well into the evening, from 12 noon to 10 o'clock at night, outside of Brooklyn Academy of Music. There'll be hundreds of Black vendors selling various items.
Yeah.
The festival continues Sunday, May 25th. Again, same location, outside of Brooklyn Academy of Music. BAM Africa Festival, 12 noon to 10 at night. And it concludes on Monday, Memorial Day, May 26th of this year, noon to 8 p.m. on Monday. Thank you, and you have a good week.